Hey there. So I wanted to talk about Integrative Processing Technique. This is one of the therapies that I offer at Haven Massage and Holistic Therapies, which is my practice. And I love IPT so much. That's Integrative Processing Technique, IPT. I love this therapy so much for the support it can offer to anyone looking to improve their emotional health. So here's a question. How and why IPT? How does IPT work and why would someone want to try it? So the answer to this varies for every person. And for me, I tried IPT at the recommendation of a friend. They were looking for some holistic remedies to some problems they were having, and they knew a facilitator who was practicing, and they suggested that I give it a try. And so I gave it a try more out of curiosity than anything. I don't know that I was aware of any conscious problems that I needed some help with, and this was probably about 15 years ago. And so I went and tried a session with this gal just to see what it was about. And so I went to the first session and I encountered something called muscle testing, which I had never before seen. The facilitator I went to, she demonstrated it for me, and she said, okay, think of somebody that you love and now hold out your arm like this, just out to the side. And I held out my arm. She said, think of somebody you love, and then she said, just resist a little bit with regular resistance. And she pressed down on my arm and I was able to resist her pressure. And then she said, okay, now think of somebody that you don't love, somebody that you really, really don't like, and then resist my pressure again. And she pressed down again, and I saw how quickly that my arm was unable to resist her pressure as I thought of the person that I didn't love. And so I was really kind of enamored by this experience. I was like, what in the world? You mean my body is made stronger by thinking of things that I love, and it's made weaker by thinking of things that I don't love? And so from here on out, I was really, really interested in what in the world is this muscle testing stuff. And so we proceeded on through this session, and I really had no agenda, no plans. I was really there just out of simple, straight curiosity. And we went through, and she utilized this muscle testing or pressing on my arm in a couple different ways. As the session progressed, we did some emotional work with my son, who was not here with me, who at the time was 18 months old, and he still was not speaking yet. And if you've ever had an 18-month-old, you know that they typically are starting to put together words into sentences and to start to make sense and to have conversations with you. Typically, where he was at 18 months is where my other kids were at like 8 months. And so he was really delayed with his speech. And so we did a little bit of session work. I honestly don't even remember too much about what happened, except that there was some, just some various things. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But I remember that when I went home, the really cool thing that happened was as we were working on him, on me, on our relationship and things that were going on in the family dynamic, I got home and, believe it or not, my son started speaking. It's like his whatever was blocking in the spiritual realm, or with his emotions, or with our family connections and ties, whatever was blocking was suddenly clear. And he began speaking. I kid you not. It was the wildest thing. There were some personal details of that. If you ever like, I can talk to you privately about it. But it was just a really, really neat experience. And I was convinced that this emotional release therapy, as it was called then, now it's called Integrative Processing Technique, that there was really something to it, as I saw straight away the benefits that it offered. And so what is Integrative Processing Technique, and why is it called this? So it is based on this idea that we as human beings have spirits that are who we are. And our spirit is fluid. It extends beyond our physical body. We know this by cases where perhaps sometimes if you're not paying attention, you have somebody come up behind you. You don't see them, but you feel them because their spirit is engaging with your spirit. This is how some moms know that their kids are in danger. They get a feeling. It's because our spirits are fluid and we're in contact with other humans who are not necessarily in physical contact with our body. And so Integrative Processing Technique works to assist those whose spirits are not majority present in the actual body, who are perhaps fragmented due to trauma. I know this might sound really bizarre if this is nothing you've heard of before, and that's okay. But there are some individuals who have had a lot of trauma And because of trauma, what can happen is large portions of their spirits can essentially fragment, soul splitting. We have professional diagnoses of this might be called those with multiple personalities, because their personality splits, if you will. So this is a holistic approach to that. I make no claims of actually healing per se, but I say that we attempt to support the spirit in reintegrating, and we call it a processing technique because it is a process. It is a session. It's a work in process. Because this is an emotional, spiritual, energetic thing, we do use muscle testing, and the muscle testing assists us. It supports us in knowing how much energy is actually in the body. It gives us information that the conscious mind might not necessarily be aware of. And it's a really fascinating thing. If you'd like to have a session, please let me know, and I'm happy to answer questions. But I'll continue to answer questions in this video. And so you might have a question, really, what is happening with muscle testing? Well, with muscle testing, we find out that when the body has its energy in full support, that there's energy flow. Now, there's different origins for these understandings. We may not necessarily have the scientific equipment to measure things here in America. Throughout the world, there's different beliefs that contribute to this, and it really doesn't matter what your beliefs are as far as your religion or where you come from. But the truth of the matter is that I can ask you to hold out your arm, and I can ask you to think of something you love. And if your energy is properly flowing, your arm will be strengthened when you think of something you love. And if it's not flowing as it ought to, the arm will go weak. It's just a simple test. Anybody can do it. It's not a muscle, like a strength test to see how strong you are, but rather just a simple observance test. And we see this evidenced in people, let's say, like if you hear the stories of people getting trapped beneath cars and, somehow having superhuman strength to lift the car off their loved one. Well, this is because when we care about something, the muscles in our body are strong. And that's really the case there. So how does muscle testing work? It's an enigma, but we work with it and we know it works. And the muscles they're stronger when something's true, weaker when something is false. And we use this to find out information about the emotional state of the person that we are working with. I just got a mosquito. So what does this session look like? We start this session, IPT session, with muscle testing. I have you stand up. We do a couple energy exercises that work with your body's natural rhythms and flows, massaging a few points that are known as energy points, just to make sure things are flowing as they should be before we get started, so we can get accurate responses from the muscle testing, and then we move forward. Now, there are ways to do muscle testing on the actual body, and I do a form of muscle testing called proxy testing, which means that, I liken it to this. Pressing on your arm is like picking up the landline telephone and dialing how we used to, and proxy muscle testing is like picking up the cell phone. And so instead of pressing on your body, we energetically get permission and we test on my body for your body, which means that this work can be done remotely. And it's really pretty awesome. And for those of you who might be like, this sounds kind of woo-woo, this sounds kind of fishy, I don't like the sound of it, it sounds like magicianship, it sounds like divination or stuff like that. It is absolutely not. I will say, do you ask that same question when you pick up your cell phone and when you press the magic buttons and somehow you call people 2,000 miles away? Do you call that witchcraft or woo-woo? No, you don't. No, you don't. You wouldn't be watching this video if that were you. And so I will say that just because you don't understand how a cell phone works, or 5G or Wi-Fi, just because you don't know how that works does not mean it's evil. So let's not even go there. Let's set that completely aside. That is not what this is about. So what does this session look like? We use some muscle testing, we test the muscles, we get permission, we do some energy exercises, and then we move forward and we muscle test to find out what is it that we want to address in the session. What do we want to address today? What is the spirit and the body ready to work on together that will be of highest good for you and your benefit? And so we ask a couple questions. What are the energies of emotion that we need to address? What is the age of origination that we want to start looking at? Perhaps the trauma that affected the spirit happened at age 4. And by pressing on the arm, we can find this out. Perhaps the stuck energy in the body is frustration, or perhaps it is feeling out of control. Perhaps it is fear. And so we begin talking about this, and what I have you do is you sit down in the chair and we just ask some questions, and you just close your eyes and we start going back into the memory banks. What happened at age 4? Where were you at age 4? Who was in the home at age 4? Who was involved in your life at age 4? And we begin talking and we begin working through the session. And from there, we find out what emotions are out of balance. And there are energies in the body that we carry and that influence our health. These energies, if left unresolved, if they're negative energies, if left unresolved, they grow, they harden, they form physical illness. The evidence we have for this, say for example, we know that stress in the body causes physical imbalance. Let's say you're driving down the road and you get stuck in heavy traffic. What do? Does your head get tense? Do your shoulders get tense? Do your hands grip the wheel a little tighter? Are you white knuckling it on your steering wheel? We know that the body has a physical response to emotional stress. And so even at age 4, you have this memory that can hold tension in the tissues in your body. I know it sounds really weird. It's okay, just hang tight with me and we'll work through this. So we talk about these emotions and we envision what these emotions might look like. And so I might say to you, okay, that trauma at age 4, if you can pull all of the negative emotion of this out of your body, what would it look like? If you can imagine that it was a color, what color would it be? And if you could imagine that it came out of your body in a pretend shape, let's pretend, what would this shape look like? So we pull it out and we're able to pull out the energies in the form of a shape and a color. Now we do this throughout the session. We do it again and again using the muscle testing to find as much as we can in one session, and we pull it out and we set it in front. In our imagination, we're setting it in front. And as we go through the session, we're able to identify what are the thoughts and the decisions that were made as a result of this trauma. And are these thoughts and decisions still serving you today? Perhaps the decision was, because my dad yelled at me as a child, perhaps I'm not good enough. And perhaps I have that belief that I have to prove myself in some way to the people around me. And so this is what it looks like. This is how it plays out in my life is I talk really loud for people to like me, hypothetically. So we talk really loud and so we find out, is that really working? Is talking really loud, trying to be the center of attention, trying to be liked, really working? Maybe it's not, maybe it is, I don't know, we work through it. And inevitably, what we do is we realize what is working and what isn't, and we invite in a higher power to come and take all of these shapes and colors that we have pulled out. And for me, that's God. I invite God in to take away my shapes and colors, and He takes them away. And this is just like what we do at church, what you might do in your faith journey, is you give over your heaviness and your hurts to your higher power, to God, and He takes them. And in this process, we invite God in to the session. And I can use whatever word you prefer for higher power. For me, it's God, it might be Jesus. The goal is not for me to impose my faith on you, but for you to bring in your higher power to come and offer you healing. And as long as it is a being of light, we can work together. And so from here, we find that God is so generous and so willing to replace this energy that was removed with a blessing. And so we ask if He'll give us a gift, and He always does. He always does. He gives a gift, and I invite you to then receive that gift into your energetic field, and it becomes a blessing to you as you go about your life. And we then do some role play, and we work with the person. We imagine them in their highest form, and we bring them into the situation and have an experience with them where we have a conversation, and forgiveness is given and offered and received. And I find that most people leave the session feeling lighter, because that heaviness is pulled out of them, and they feel brighter and they feel happier and more ready to go about their day. And for me, this was transformative in my life because it assisted me with some trauma that happened to me as a child that I wasn't able to address on my own. And I had been through therapies and done different things over the years to handle how I dealt with struggles. But this experience was so unique because it involved my higher power in my session. it directly utilized a facilitator that was willing to say, let's invite in God to take your pain and to heal you. And you can receive that. And so we can do this on our own. I just described it very easily for you. You can do this on your own, but so often it is such a huge blessing to have a facilitator help you, someone ask you questions to help you go in the places that you're not ready to go on your own, to really dive deep into what is your issue and what you're struggling with. And the muscle testing really helps to hone it in and say, okay, what age are we going at? What emotions are stuck? What emotions can you work on today? And let's see how we can move forward in your healing. Right, so you might be asking, how long does all of this take? Well, we can do quick sessions, but typically I really enjoy a 2-hour session. This gives us plenty of time to not rush, to adequately do the muscle testing, to talk about what's going on in your life, to give you time to really, really go deep and see what is the situation here that needs healing. You might also ask, is this something that children can do? And I would say, yes, absolutely. I find that with children, the sessions are much shorter because they're younger. They don't have so much baggage that they're carrying through life, and they're very quick to address what's bothering them, and we get it while it's still fresh, and they can adjust it fairly quickly. Now with children, we will often use crayons and paper, and we will keep their eyes open, not have them close their eyes like we do with adults, because it's pretty easy for them to get into their imaginations and to find the stuff that's troubling them. Now, if you still have questions after I've explained all of this to you, I invite you to go to my website and book a discovery call. We can answer any questions you might have. We can discuss my policies and procedures. And if you think that this might be something to help you or your family or your loved ones, we can go ahead and book a session from there. I'm happy to answer any questions in a discovery call. My website is www.havenmassageandholistictherapies.com. I will put a link to that in the description for this video. And I am happy to talk to you anytime about IPT. It has been such a blessing for me and people I know. And you know what? Some people, it's wonderful for them. It's exactly what they need. It's a deep dive. And other people, it's not for them. They may not be ready to go into their traumas. They may not be content with doing work in their imagination, which is a lot of what I like to call it. It's imagination work. It's memory work. It's energy work. It's spiritual work. It's invisible work. It's work in the invisible realm that we don't always have words for. Some people aren't comfortable with it. Really, that's okay. But if you're willing and interested to give it a try, it can be very, very powerful. A huge blessing, a wonderful thing for those who have tried a lot of things and aren't getting the help they need. And for me, it's been one of the most wonderful tools and a really potent way of connecting with God with somebody, because you have to believe that He's coming and taking this away from you, and He does. So feel free to do it on your own. I just told you so much of what happens in the session. You can do it on your own. There are so many resources out there for faith healing, but this is one that's been really effective for me. And so I'm happy to come alongside you and help you as you explore this. So like I said, if you have any questions, reach out, please. And I'm happy to work with you and help you on your way. So have a blessed day, and I will talk to you soon.